All right. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So obviously you're here because you have seen the title and you have seen the thumbnail. It is no mystery that we are going to be talking about Sonic 06 today. Now, I didn't necessarily know whether or not at first I wanted to do this one in front of the camera or not, but I decided to not do that solely because I think it's important that we really do take a look at Project 06 for this specific video, because Project 06, I've come to understand over the last couple of years that it's been in development, and since it's been, almost finished, that it is actually pretty notable amongst the Sonic community and amongst Sonic video games in general, because it really does and has shown so much potential for what Sonic 06 could have been originally. So I decided, you know what? I don't really want to get dressed today anyway, and I've been kind of slacking on actually making videos this last week. I don't know what it is, but I decided to just, let's just chit chat. Let's just go ahead and talk about this, because I think that Project 06 really does shine a light on what could have been and why I came to this, idea in the first place, right? Because I have been thinking for a little while now, right? Ever since, a couple of months ago, somebody rumored that there was going to be a Sonic Heroes remake, that there was a Sonic Heroes remake in development, and that we were going to see it within the next 2 or so years or something like that. That ended up not even being true, and we ended up getting Sonic Generations, or Sonic X Shadow Generations anyway. So, it's kind of a weird spot to be in, because on one hand, Sonic Heroes was a very important game, right? It was like one of the first, or if the first, multi-platform Sonic games that went kind of major for Sega. So Sonic Heroes was definitely one of the more important Sonic games. Despite how anybody feels about it, it was a very important game, and back in the day, it did what it needed to do, right? It definitely set a standard for, how people felt about Sonic characters and about Sonic games in general, especially in the 3D space. So it was definitely a time, to be a Sonic fan. So here's the thing, though. People were pretty damn excited, and then it came to me. That's right. Sonic Heroes actually sold pretty well for its time, even, multi-platform, for its time. That's pretty damn good, right? So 3.4 million copies? Awesome, great, good for Sonic Heroes, right? And when we heard that we might be getting a Sonic Heroes remake, people were actually pretty excited about the concept of that, because Sonic Heroes was definitely one of the fan favorites. A lot of people started with Sonic Heroes and, got into Sonic through Sonic Heroes. Sonic Heroes was definitely one of the starter 3D Sonic games that a lot of people got into the franchise through. I didn't get into the franchise through Sonic Heroes, but it was definitely one of the strongest, during its time, the strongest 3D games for me for a long time, until I got my hands on Unleashed, right? Either way, doesn't really matter. Point is, people were very excited about that. And then, we got Sonic X Shadow Generations announced. People are ecstatic for that. And then it got me thinking, what other Sonic games can be remade in this caliber, right? To the extent where people are just ecstatic about it and just kind of really excited to see one of their favorite games remade for modern consoles and things like that, right? So a while back, I made a video titled Games That Should Be Remade and Remastered, or something along those lines. Essentially, I listed a bunch of Sonic games that either needed to just be remastered or games that needed to be remade from the ground up, right? Now, I mentioned a lot of my favorites, of course, like Sonic Riders, the Sonic Riders series. I think that just needs to be remastered. Of course, I think that Sonic Unleashed needs to just be remastered. However, I did think, and I still do believe, that I don't think that it's too crazy to believe that we could actually benefit from a Sonic 06 remake, right? Because here's the thing. Again, with Project 06 as proof, there was a lot of potential in the gameplay. There was just so many different elements that just weren't really included or polished, simply because they didn't have the time and they didn't have the manpower, because they had to split said manpower trying to get ready for Sonic and the Secret Rings, right? They tried to make the Sonic 06 port. We're not going into all of that. We all know the history of Sonic 06. We don't need to go into any of that, right? We know. We understand that fully and completely. But Sonic 06 definitely, for me, right? I think I mentioned this in the video, but I'll say it again. Sonic 06 for me was definitely one of the stronger entries, not because You know, it was in a negative, not completely in a negative light. I mean, definitely in a negative light, of course. But it had heart. It had so much heart, and it actually had some real effort, and it had just a vibe that I feel like we haven't really seen as much of from the Sonic franchise until recent years, starting with Frontiers to me, right? Because for a long time, they spent years upon years trying to play cleanup, and because of that, the character of Sonic just suffered in so many different ways. He went in so many different directions, some unrecognizable, just some that were just really unfitting or unflattering in a lot of different ways. I was one of the few that just was not a fan of Sonic Colors. Like, Sonic Colors as a concept is fine. The gameplay was fine. They did what they needed to do. But I just never vibed with it, and it didn't help that the story and the atmosphere and everything it just didn't sit right with me, because that didn't really feel like Sonic, the Sonic that I knew, you know? And, you know, I can say that for a lot of the games, you know? Sonic Unleashed is definitely the closest that they've ever gotten, but even with Unleashed, with it being one of my favorites, I still felt like they were missing something, all right? And it was because of what happened with 06 and, you know, the move on with Colors and everything like that, with the success of Colors, that things started to really, really change, right? And again, we already know this story, yada, yada, yada. We don't need to go into all that. The point is, we haven't felt such a high stakes, high energy, super epic story tale like 06 until Frontiers, in my book. Frontiers, of course, does a better job in the storytelling department because it's more dedicated to, you know, the story of Sonic, the world and history of Sonic and its characters and its lore with the Chaos Emeralds and everything like that. That's actually super important to the history of the franchise as opposed to 06. But 06 felt like a shonen movie to me, right? With Sonic 06, it felt like a shonen movie because it was taking all these characters that we know and love, and even introducing a new character in Silver and putting them in this situation that they were not initially involved in, but something that challenges their characters, something that really put their willpower, their strength to the test. And I really appreciated 06 for that, right? And of course, again, the story fell short in a lot of different ways. When it comes to time travel stories, that's always a complete mess, you know. There's only so much you can do when you don't have proper rules set and things like that. And time travel in general is just so finicky as a story that it can be very, very hit or miss. And with Sonic 06, unfortunately, they definitely had a blueprint somewhere, but it got lost in the sauce. And Sonic 06 definitely suffered for it, right? However, like many others, I still believe that Sonic 06 had the potential to be the strongest Sonic game ever. Like, I really do believe that the atmosphere, the characterization, the plots, the gameplay, if polished to a pristine edge, could have given us such a different vision for Sonic's future. And I really do believe that it had a lot of potential, which is why I look at Sonic X Shadow Generations and I'm super happy that they decided to do something like go out of their way to revisit such an important character's past. Shadow the Hedgehog has had such a messy past for so long that it started to get ridiculous, to the point where we didn't even know who this Shadow the Hedgehog that we've had for the last decade or so even was. We, to our knowledge, lost this character in Sonic Adventure 2 because originally Shadow wasn't going to go past that game as a character, but because he became so damn popular, they brought him back. But now he's an android, and now he's a clone, now he's an alien. We had no clue what was going on, right? And then after a certain amount of time, a lot of Sonic's history just started to get ignored, and they didn't acknowledge things like Sonic 06. They didn't acknowledge things like Shadow the Hedgehog. They didn't acknowledge Shadow's past, and so we never really thought we were ever going to truly get a history for this character, which is why I really am happy. Me and a lot of others are truly happy that they are taking Sonic seriously, and after the writing in Sonic Frontiers, we could see that they really truly care about these characters, that they really truly care about their histories, and that they are willing to go out on a limb and give us something like Sonic X Shadow Generations, where we can actually get to know even more of Shadow than we did before, right? Because they're giving us the Dark Beginnings, which is showing us everything that's happened during Shadow's time on the Ark with Maria. And we never knew about Emerald and stuff like that. The only way you would know the history of Emerald is if you played and, you know, really dedicated yourself to the story of Sonic Battle, which in all honesty is very ignorable. Unfortunately, I hate to put it that way, but it truly is, right? So then you look at Sonic X Shadow Generations, The Dark Beginnings, and you're like, wow, like we're about to see firsthand what truly went down. Like, we're gonna get more info on how this character was created. We're probably gonna get so much information about, you know, how he truly came into contact with Eggman and Rouge and everything like that. We're gonna, you know, see what truly became of Black Doom and the Dark Arms and things like that. Obviously, because Black Doom obviously plays a critical, or he plays a critical role in Sonic X Shadow Generations. So it's like, wow, that's really, really awesome. Can we get something like that for Sonic 06, right? Now, of course, again, like I said, it plays more off as like an animated movie for a series, to me, like a shonen movie, because while it does, you know, challenge the characters that we know, it doesn't directly influence anybody other than the past of Silver, which I still think is super important to the franchise. Silver has been around for a good while now, and he's been treated like a very like C-rated character. You don't see him mentioned even a lot in, you know, he's not even mentioned in Frontiers. He's not mentioned in a lot of, you know, more recent Sonic games or anything like that. Silver is an afterthought, which is really unfortunate, because as a concept, Silver is so strong. He is such a cool character, and he takes very obvious influence from like Trunks and things like that from Dragon Ball Z. And I personally am a sucker for characters from the future that want to change the past for the sake of a better future for their friends and family and their loved ones and things like that. I am a sucker for that kind of thing. And that's what's funny, is that, you know, even though Silver is based off of Trunks, Silver is also an influence to that mindset for me, which is why I think that it's so unfair that Silver got the short end of the stick, because I honestly think that Silver is a very interesting character and a very entertaining character, and he's been shown even in Sonic Generations. I almost said Pokemon, that's crazy. Even in Sonic Generations, as a rival, he's throwing everything he has at you in that rival battle. Silver is no joke. He should be treated so much better than he is, and he's just sidelined so much. And I feel like giving us a Sonic 06 remake could really help elevate Silver as a character, and even possibly, potentially bring him up to speed, put him on par with Sonic and Shadow as like the true like third hedgehog, like the third true powerhouse of the franchise. Because a hedgehog with telekinesis that can move damn near as fast as Sonic and Shadow on the ground in the air should not be underestimated in any way, shape, or form. And Super Silver? Oh my goodness. As a matter of fact, I don't think we've had Super Shadow since 06, right? Has it really been that long? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is absolutely an issue that needs to be addressed, because there is no real reason as to why Sonic should be the only one to be able to utilize the Chaos Emeralds in that way. Of course, I would love to see, you know, actual super forms for like Amy, Tails, Knuckles, whatever, but the three hedgehogs having that power and fighting against the god of time, tell me that does not hit different. Like, even if the boss battle itself was whatever, you cannot sit there and tell me that the concept in of itself was not awesome. That is just so raw, and it is peak Sonic. Like, that is just the most badass thing you could do with these characters. And that's what I really enjoyed about 06, is that even despite the writing, despite the issues with the plot in of itself, the characters to me were mostly fine, right? They didn't go out of their way. They didn't like actively destroy anybody's character. In fact, some of the characters were fine as they were, you know? like, obviously Sonic and Elise's relationship were very much questionable. that was definitely strange, but it's still one of those things where it's not really out of Sonic's wheelhouse, you know? And then, of course, like I've said a million times over, Shadow in this form is definitely one of the strongest written versions of himself that we have ever seen. A Shadow that is experienced, a Shadow that understands what he's been through and why he is who he is, and then a Silver that has to overcome so much when losing his friend. We still got to talk about Blaze and everything like that, but a Silver that has, you know, gone through the pain of losing his friend and putting himself to the side, you know, when it comes to the selfishness of, you know, trying to fix a future that's already destroyed, as opposed to, you know, saving a future that has a potential to actually become something, right? Which is why I think it's really important that we really revisit that, not only for Silver's case, but for Blaze's case as well, because yes, she was introduced in Sonic Rush, but in reality, I feel like we can do a lot more with that. Her coming from the soul dimension, that's what it's called, right? Her coming from the soul dimension is a really interesting concept, and utilizing her as Silver's best friend could really elevate things. Like if Silver were from that dimension as well, I feel like that would explain a hell of a lot as to why, you know, that future is the way it is, or I don't know. There's a lot of different things you could do with that dynamic and everything like that, and I feel like you could make the relationship a lot stronger too, especially if we get insights to, you know, how they are together and things like that, because I feel like that could be a really, really good relationship. But Blaze was just so underutilized in that story, and Blaze as a character is underutilized in general in this franchise, even less so than Silver, right? I don't even think Blaze was in like Sonic Forces, which acknowledged almost everybody. If she was, go ahead and correct me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because she obviously didn't play much of a role, and neither did Silver. He played for a main role for like all of 2 seconds, but again, I feel like utilizing a Sonic 06 remake to elevate that relationship as well could really help benefit their characters and their development for future titles and things like that as well. And then, of course, there is an opportunity to probably put the humans in a better light as well when it comes to the Sonic franchise, because as of now, humans are very hit or miss, right? And it's because of Sonic 06 that it's like that. Okay, when humans were in Sonic Unleashed, I mean, at the time, a lot of people just were ragging on Sonic because it was Sonic and didn't really pay attention to what Unleashed offered. But one of my main points here is that they didn't really bat an eye at the humans because they weren't so jarring. The designs that they had in that game were perfectly fine for that world. They felt like they weren't too out of place when it came to Sonic characters, because in 06, putting these crazy, like, hyper-realistic humans or whatever, not hyper-realistic per se, for its time, you know, these, like, closer to reality humans next to these giant hedgehogs and fox, like, it was just very jarring. It was such a juxtaposition that it just felt out of place. And so I feel like ever since then, it's been very hit or miss with adding humans to the Sonic franchise. I mean, of course, that debate's been around for a very long time, even since, like, Sonic X, because humans played such a major role in Sonic X, but it wasn't as much of a discussion to me, from what I've seen, until we saw them in 06. And then it was very like, oh, we don't need humans, or humans can make things work, yada yada yada. It was just very, very, like, on the fence for a lot of people, and it usually caused more harm than good when involving humans, which I don't think is a problem, because we didn't bat an eye in Sonic Adventure 1 or 2 when humans were involved. I don't think that if designed properly and added to the story correctly and, you know, messed with the world properly, that it would have that much of an effect, right? Because it is jarring, right? Like, it was perfectly fine in Sonic Frontiers to just be based in a realm where we didn't see any humans or anything like that. Like, we didn't, like, have any, like, general NPCs to interact with, but it was also kind of strange, right? It was also very awkward that it was so lonely, you know? It was just you, I guess it was Sonic, Amy, Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, and Sage as the most sentient beings. Of course, you know, the End and everything like that, you know, the Ancients and all that. but for the most part, there weren't any NPCs. It was a very lonely world. And I would like to explore a world again where we have, you know, other NPCs. And if it has to be humans, then that's cool with me too. You know, I feel like if utilized correctly, we could actually have some proper NPCs, and being able to run around as Sonic or Shadow or Tails or Knuckles or whatever in a big open city or something like that, in a bigger open world, I feel like it would be really, really cool to have something like that. And I feel like a redesign of like Soliana, because that's supposed to be a kingdom, right? Soliana, like, it's just a town, and it's like, it's fine, you know, it's pretty cool, but I feel like, you know, a redesign, obviously if we're redesigning 06, you would have to redesign, you know, the structure to really accommodate for Sonic's actual speed and, you know, the things that he's able to do naturally, of course. So obviously you would have to build, you know, Soliana and, you know, pretty much every level with that in mind, because obviously we would need to speed Sonic up. But again, that's kind of a given. Honestly, the way it is in Project 06, speed them up just a little bit more, even a little bit more, and we're golden, you know? I would love to have the boost formula in another 06 remake, but if we didn't do that, then just make him naturally fast like he was in SA1 or 2, and we'll be okay. I think that's perfectly fine as is. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that I personally did not mind that much that the humans were as they were. They just didn't play too heavy of a role being where they were, aside from giving Eggman and the Flames of Disaster something to torture and terrorize and destroy. And I just feel like we could do so much more with the humans, especially if they're designed properly to, you know, accommodate for what the world looks like in Sonic's universe, right? And so I feel like a redesign of this, if done correctly, could elevate how NPCs and other characters and humans and even other like Mobius residents are utilized as NPCs when it comes to the future of Sonic games. Because I feel like Sonic games are, especially in like an open hub like Sonic Frontiers, of course it was the first of its kind and everything like that, so I can't give it too much, you know, crap or anything like that, but it was just so incredibly lonely. All right, even Zelda like was not that lonely, you know what I'm saying? Like they, you know, you go into towns as Link and things like that, sometimes there'll be some NPCs outside that you'll run into, and every now and again in Sonic it was just so incredibly lonely, and I feel like we could definitely fix that up. You know, I would love situations where, you know, a group of humans or a group of Mobius residents are in trouble, and you fight a couple Eggman baddies or whatever, and maybe you get like a little something for a reward for saving them. You know, I just feel like there's just so many ways that they can be utilized properly if we gave them the proper design and time to be utilized in an 06 remake. But that's where I stand with that. Of course, there's probably plenty of people that absolutely disagree with me, and that's more than fine. A lot of people definitely still and will always have mixed stances when it comes to humans in the Sonic franchise, and the movies definitely don't help with that, because, oh my goodness, the live action universe definitely puts more of an emphasis on the humans than anything. But, you know, for the most part, it's definitely something to be considered if we were to get an 06 remake. Also, I just feel like, generally speaking, concept-wise, this is a very good playground to utilize the new style, this new open zone play style that we're going to be utilizing for the future. I feel like 06's world could definitely benefit from that, right? Because I would love to see where we have an open zone, right? Where we have, you know, Soliana, and we have the outskirts of Soliana with the forest and things like that, and there's enemies around, there's NPCs around, and there's obvious like actual levels and things like that. But then we'll obviously go into almost cyber stage-esque situations, maybe not even that, but like loosely based on that, where we would go to the future, to the past with Sonic, Shadow, or Silver, or whatever, and we would explore, you know, the underground aquatic base, or we would go to Wave Ocean, or Dusty Desert, or Flame Core. Obviously, even like Sonic Generations has proved that Levels from '06, like Crisis City, can absolutely be utilized in a boost formula setting. It can absolutely be utilized with this modern format and still be incredible, right? Because I've never really had much of a problem with the general level design of '06. Like, it's definitely strange, but I didn't hate the aesthetic. I didn't hate the designs or anything like that. It was just because of how limited the characters were and how unpolished that they felt, that it felt like the levels were underutilized, because there's a lot of different ways to get around a lot of those levels, and, you know, just so many different paths to take sometimes. But because of how the characters were designed, you were very heavily limited on how you could get around comfortably. And in turn, you were limited to a pretty narrow, straightforward path, because veering off of that path would be, you know, very unfortunate, because you would likely, in terms of, like, you know, Flame Core, for example, you're not trying to run on the walls or anything like that. You will fall. you will fall. And then, for Sonic X Shadow Generations, they literally reconstructed from the ground up a level for Kingdom Valley with the boost formula and level design in mind. So now we have this version of Kingdom Valley that's explorable for Shadow. Not explorable per se, but it's an actual, like, it feels like a natural Sonic level. And I feel like doing that kind of thing, right? Now, of course, I feel like that's very hit or miss depending on how things are developed. It could make the game ridiculously short, depending on how they do it, because then we'd only get, like, a good couple stages per character, if that, and then we'd be going through all of those stages. Of course, I mean, depending on how they design things, they could definitely, you know, lengthen things out just a little bit, you know, give us a little more challenge to play with and things like that. But for the most part, I feel like reinventing them in this way makes them a lot more viable for use and to play around in, because I feel like the designs and the aesthetics and everything, the atmosphere of these levels are actually immaculate. I really do enjoy going through those levels in Project 06, and even in original 06, going through those levels was so much fun for me. The music was incredible. The atmosphere was awesome, right? The gameplay was rough, but my god, I'd be lying if I didn't say that the design of these areas and their aesthetics weren't something truly next level. Like, they really did put a lot of heart, effort, and thought into designing a lot of these areas. You know, going through White Acropolis every single time is so interesting to me, because there's so much going on, and there's so much to do, and there's so much they put around, you know. Of course, a lot of it's very repetitive, of course, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy just going around something like White Acropolis. You know, obviously, you know, the tropical jungle and dusty desert could absolutely use a little bit of work. They're a little too generic, but even levels like those, even at their weakest, they're not the worst thing I've ever seen in terms of level design from, you know, the Sonic franchise. I still debatably think that Forces has done way worse in terms of design and aesthetic, but, you know, that just really just goes to show that if you were to have, you know, gone with the design philosophy of either SA2 or even reinvent it completely and go for a more, you know, modern Sonic style, like you're doing with Sonic X Shadow Generations, and like what you did with Crisis City back in, you know, original Sonic Generations, I feel like these levels and these designs and these aesthetics could once again see the light of day and really, you know, fall into some of the best when it comes to categories for best designed levels in Sonic video games, because those designs were such a waste. I feel like in some aspects, I feel like they deserve so much better for what they were, and I would really love to see those reutilized and really reach their full potential, like what's happening with Kingdom Valley. That's going to be, I know that's probably going to be one of my favorite levels to revisit constantly when we get our hands on Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's going to be so much fun. I legitimately cannot wait for that. So I think you get what I'm getting at, right? At this point, it's no mystery that there's a lot of people, me included, that appreciate what Sonic 06 tried to give us, even if it didn't completely accomplish that goal. It had so much potential, it had so much heart, it had so much love, and you could definitely tell in a lot of the level designs, you could tell in, you know, the characterization, and you can tell with the attempt at a much, you know, deeper, higher stakes story that just kind of fell flat in certain points, but they also attempted to make just a super epic tale with some of our favorite characters from this franchise the best they could, with the limited time and manpower that they ended up having at the time of its development. And, you know, again, there's no reason to keep going back to it, yada yada yada. The thing is that I think a Sonic 06 remake, whatever you would want to call it, Sonic Evolution or whatever, could really be something really interesting that not anytime soon, right? This isn't something that I could see them doing within even the next like 5 or 10 years, but maybe at some point, maybe some director, right, will have seen how far the Sonic series is going and take a look at 06, one of the biggest blunders in the franchise's history, and just be like, you know what? Let's try and really deliver what this game wanted to give us, because that was their make-or-breaking point. And to re-deliver a really high-quality product of a game that is once the sinking ship of almost gaming for a lot of people, like, just in general. I mean, that's how people treat it anyway, but what was once a just massive sinking ship for the franchise, to rebuild that, to reconstruct that, and truly try to deliver the special product that they wanted to give us, I think that would mean a lot to a lot of people. And I could definitely see them, if they took their time to really get in on that, we could see something really cool, right? I would love to see Mephiles again. I would love to see the epic scale of fighting something like Solaris again. I would love to see Sonic, Shadow, and Silver in the big leagues again, all of them together. You know, I want to see Super Shadow again. I want to see Super Silver, you know. I want to see maybe some new ideas, you know, and maybe, just maybe, if y'all can concoct it correctly, a real story that, you know, has proper time rules and things like that, that could really make a special little story. I really do. One day I would really hope to see that. I'm not really banking on it though. Long story short, that franchise, the franchise of Sonic the Hedgehog, is going to do its best to move forward as much as it can. However, with the revisit of Sonic X Shadow Generations, it's very clear to me that they're not against doing something like a revisit to revamp and fix up things from Sonic's history, right? And the fact that they're even acknowledging something like Black Doom and stuff like Kingdom Valley and things like that really does lead me to believe that they are definitely more willing to acknowledge mistakes and things like that. I mean, they always have been, but they would utilize it in more of a joking manner. But now they're fully doing their best to realize a lot of these things in the way that they couldn't do it before. And that's what makes me excited for Sonic's future, because they're genuinely taking this franchise a little bit more seriously. And, you know, hopefully one day I would just love to see something to the scale of 06 be realized. And that would just make me ecstatic. But hey, maybe that's just me. So that just about wraps it up for this one. This one has been a video that's been on my mind for a very long time, right? I really wanted to talk about this because there's a lot of Sonic games that I really never got the chance to talk about, and obviously I've definitely missed the window for talking about 06 because everybody and their mamas have always talked about Sonic 06. I'm definitely not even the first person to pitch this, right? I've seen millions of videos where people have tried to recreate or rewrite Sonic 06's storyline and things like that, yada, 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 whatever, right? This isn't me trying to do that necessarily, but this is just me wanting to see, like, if there are concepts and ideas from 06 that, if revisited in a more modern, you know, Sonic state, could be really beneficial for the series, because there's ideas here that were always just so cool to me and a lot of other people that just got underutilized because of rushed storytelling and just underdeveloped, you know, just general developments and things like that when it comes to game design. And so I don't know. Sonic 06, despite what it is, will still always have a very special place in my heart, and I'm going to be playing Project 06 forever. So, Yeah, no, Chaos. What was that's the developers Chaos X, right? Absolutely incredible job on Project 06. I will appreciate this forever, right? And it's because I saw a video the other day from Fidel where he was ranking a bunch of, like, you know, based on like how notable or important a Sonic game is to the franchise. And I noticed that he put Project 06 in notable, like very low in notable. But I'm like, I think it's a little bit higher than that, because Project 06 really goes to show how much potential this game had to be one of the best. And all Chaos X did was make some tweaks to what was already there, and include stuff that was already there, and just polish it as much as he could. And that's really something special to me. It really, really is. But I think that just about does it for my little podcast style ramble for this week. I think I'm going to start doing these like once a week or something like that. We need more podcast rambles in between the random whatever that I do. So I'll play it by ear. But for now, I think I've rambled on enough. So I'm passing the mic over to y'all, and y'all need to tell me what y'all are thinking in the comment section below. Do you think that I'm onto something? Do you think that Sonic 06 could absolutely give us an awesome remake if they decided to really hunker down and revisit that history, that part of Sonic? Or do you think that it's too dangerous, it's not really worth it, we should just keep moving forward as a franchise and just never look back at what Sonic 06 was? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. And with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and do just so. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this right here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.